Welcome back to the latest in our series of battle reports on the pre-Stalingrad clashes that took place in the steppes before Stalingrad. We're using lists from Enemy at the Gates and Cross of Iron, as before. The first, let me see now, how many battles have we done? 4. First 4 battles haven't gone very well for the conscript Soviets. This battle could be even more challenging depending on if they're attacking or defending, because we're playing Armoured Fury and it's a tank list, a Soviet Tankovy against a German Panzer company. Now, it's a very tricky game to play in defence as Armoured Fury, and I know that I've seen other YouTubers talking about difficulties they have with it and rule changes they'd like to see and so on, but I thought we're going to give it a go. We're going to play it to the current rules and see what happens. Normally what happens every game that I've seen of this so far is that the attacker wins, partly because, or if the defender never wins, that's maybe another way of putting it, because the defender has to be in 3 different places. They have to hold on to the objective that they're deployed on, hold on to the objective up at the far end of the table, and at the same time manage to take an objective that the enemy is attacking over, all with delayed and scattered reserves. So it's quite a tricky one, but we'll give it a go. We're going to roll off to see who is the attacker. The highest dice roll will be the attacker, and we'll take it from there. So let's see how Panzer IIIs with some Marder support do against a fair number of T-34s with some T-60s and some infantry on both sides as well, just for that close-in fighting that might be needed. So we'll come back after the game for a recap. So here is the battlefield. The mission is dust up. No, it isn't. So here is the battlefield. Armoured Fury is the mission. That was the Soviet deployment zone, a sensible place for them to start defending. There is an objective over there in that corner, placed by the Germans, a Soviet objective here and here. So on the table for the Germans, they have a platoon of 3 Panzer IIIs, 4 Marders and then 4 long-barrelled Panzer IIIs. Then in reserve, company command of 2 short 50s, a platoon of 3 75s and 1 short 50, plus a platoon of grenadiers. So there's some decent anti-tank ratings in these Panzer IIIs to help them take on the T-34s. And the T-34s are currently off table. There is a platoon in ambush, so that's 7 T-34s, and then got 7 T-34s off table in reserve with the company command T-34. And then we've also got, these are T-70s, but they're meant to be T-60s. And my plan for them is to get to that objective. Now, here's the thing, folks. In this mission, as I said before, it's quite tricky for the defender, but I'm just going to measure something out here. I'll just pause the recording and then I'll come back. Now, with the spearhead rule, staying outside 16 inches of the deployment zone of the opposition, an armoured car platoon could move up to here, roughly here, sorry, and then deploy a tank platoon over here, and then they could dash to here. So is that right, folks? Please have a think. I'm thinking armoured cars, spearheading 16 inches, tanks deploying within 8 inches of the command of the armoured cars. So there is 24 inches. Then the tanks, the first turn, dashing 18 inches, potentially with a follow me at the end of it. I mean, that's the objective gone in turn 1. Fair enough, they've got to wait till turn 2 to hold it, but reserves don't start coming on until turn 3 for the defender. So have a think, folks, and tell me if I'm wrong. German turn 1, they got reserves, so they've brought on Panzer 3s and dashed them up behind these houses. And then Panzer 2s dashed and followed me. These guys are staying on the ground. They could start pinging away at the infantry. Might kill a few, but you know, Brian's concerned about the ambush, the T-34 ambush. So he's going to stay on the ground just now, and then maybe next turn he'll be more confident. But let's see what I can do, guys. I've got to stop these, and I might have to use an ambush of T-34s to do it. Soviet turn 1. It's not yet time for reserves. So I did put my ambush over here. It was in this area. Then tactical move out. A few cross checks, one failed. I needed 8s. One was 9s. 8s to hit these guys because of terrain, slow firing weapon, scout rule, and such like. The T-60s have moved out. They don't move very fast over terrain, but the terrain dashed 10 inches and then followed me successfully for another 4 inches. So kind of leaves this open a bit, but I can at least turn to defend over here if Brian puts some pressure on, and I do at least have guys in the buildings which he won't be able to assault out. He'll need his infantry for that, but he could just shoot them, of course. So over to German turn 2. German turn 2. So no reserves this turn. So he's just torturing me here. He shot up with a dash move and positioned himself so he's out of line of sight of my tanks. I'll have to move to get shots on him. And he may well lose a few, but he's pushing me away, which means over here he's done a blitz with the Panzer 3 platoon here, a dash with the Marders, who now know where the enemy tanks are. With a 32-inch range, they can do some damage. And then fired. These guys did nothing, but these guys managed to get 3 bases, one in the house, one in the open, one in the church. So, no reserves again for the Soviets. Next turn, let's see what I can come up with. Soviet turn 2. So these are still moving over. They failed, I forgot to move the commander, but they failed to follow me. But they're coming over to just try and defend that objective, though the big boys have already done it, and they're probably now in the wrong place. These guys managed to get a few shots in, got 3 hits. They needed 6s to bail, 1 destroyed and 2 bailed, as it turns out. So we'll see if they can get back in. And next turn they start rolling for reserves. So over to the Germans. German turn 3. So the Panzer 3s, 1 got in, 1 didn't, and they passed the last stand. So the platoon commanders backed off to here just now. The company command have moved up to get some, they got some shots off. The infantry dashed. These tanks pretty much stayed still apart from 1 that had to move to get some shots up because the Marders had moved up. They're in cover because it's always safer to leave them in cover, and Brian's always keen to keep his Marders as hard to hit as possible, as it would be all. Only 1 was in range to have a shot against the T-34s, but it missed. And then as far as the shooting goes, these were the only guys, once again, to cause any casualties, and they got 1 more base of infantry in the church. So there's only 1 base of infantry left in the church, so that's 4 bases down, and they're now in a position to close with the enemy a bit more because I've got the infantry there. We'll have to see when the reserves come in and where they come in. So Soviet turn 3. Panzers, the T-34s have come around here and I managed to get the last of the Panzer IIs. T-60s are moving behind cover. You know, murders, I'll probably murder them, but I might give them something to worry about because murders don't have very thick armour. I kept the T-34s back to force the murders to move forward if they want to get shots on them. But that was about it, I'm afraid. So over to Brian for turn 4. German turn 4. So Brian's pretty much stayed put apart from his infantry who are pushing up, and then everyone else just stayed, well, apart from these guys who failed a blitz, everyone else stayed still and fired at the infantry. It was a very bad day for the infantry, dropping like flies, 7 in one turn. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe about 11 or 12 of them left. So, looking good for the Germans so far. So Soviet turn 4. The T-34s have got themselves a little bit separated due to the two being stuck on the hill. But you can see I'm moving up here with some cover to get in close, which could be quite useful. These guys have said we have to take some fire away from the infantry, so let's move up here to get killed. The infantry unpinned, oh, and no reserves. 2 dice rolled, but no reserves. So there's not actually going to be any shooting for the Soviets this turn. Over to Brian again. German turn 5. So the infantry are moved up, some are in the church. Everything else stayed still to shoot. The Marders took out 3 and bailed 1 of the T-60s. There wasn't as many infantry casualties this turn because all the close range targets are now dead. But they still got 2. Brian wants to see where the reserves come in before he puts himself out too much out in the open. So, a bad turn if you're a T-60, otherwise not too bad a turn for me. Soviet turn 5. 3 dice for reserves, only got 1. But luckily they came in right where they were needed, and it's turned out to be a Panzer attack because these guys have come over the hill. So, as far as shooting's concerned, I didn't do any infantry shooting, I'll have to do that, tidy that up. This side was, well, they bailed 1 and killed 1 and that's it, even though they were shooting at stuff in the open. But that slow firing thing is not very nice. These moved up to take on the Marders and missed. These moved up, needing 5s, using 5 dice. They got 4 hits, so there's 2 dead and 2 bailed Marders, so that's a major upset for Brian. He can possibly get 2 of them back in, and then hammer me back. He's just got to do that, and I'd imagine on 2s he'll be clobbering me. But it's a bit of a ding-dong battle now. Let's see what happens. German turn 6. So, maybe a game of 2 halves in this turn here. First of all, there are 3 dead, I'm running out of smoke markers, 3 dead T-34s and 1 bailed. Took a bit of a hammering, but they're hitting a 2 up. The fact that there's some alive is down to poor firepowers. A lot of these tanks that are dead were bailed out and double bailed and things. The Marders did terrible. They only got 2 hits, and which doesn't, 2 out of 4 got 2 hits. Only needed a 2, and the T-34s both matched the anti-tank, so they just bailed. But then another one got destroyed by a Panzer III, and then Brian's shooting and scooted all over the place, pulling back like a proper little German, killing and then hiding. The Marders had pulled back. They were really exposed where they were, so they're just going to chance it and see if they can get back maybe into the woods, bit of cover, and force the T-70s to come on because they've only got a short range. So I've got a few motivations to do at the start. Oh, the infantry stayed pinned because they could have been handy for an assault against those tanks, but there you go. Soviet turn 6. The company commander came on, and believe it or not, he came on over here as well, which was quite handy. So he's joined these guys here. Getting Panzer 3s in the open and rolling nothing but 2s isn't very good. But these guys, company commander and this one here, managed to kill 2 Panzer 3s. They're all 2 6s to hit, one in the rear, one in the front that failed as safes. The T-60s managed to hit a Marder, but it was just a potential bail and it failed its firepower. These 2 never got back in. As it was, they could have used them obviously, but in the end they didn't. They desperately need them because they managed to kill and bail the remaining Marders. So, both sides are whittling each other down, doing better on one side than on the other. We'll see what happens. I've got a wee plan in my mind. We'll see what Brian does next. German turn 7. So Brian's seen my wee plan. This objective is hanging, so he's dashed his company commanders round to protect it. He moved this guy back, done a cross check. It passed its last stand, and it's now got a motivation reroll and can help defend that. The Marder managed to stay and kill and bail 1. And then over here, his firepower's 3 up firepower, 4 up firepower, guys. They did manage to get 2. No, they didn't destroy a single thing. And there was some double motivations, double bails from some motivations were required, but they passed everything. So there's 3 bailed out T-34s. The infantry are still pinned. They're not going anywhere. And the Marder shooting scooted back to here. So I'll see what I can do to get these guys back in and maybe even kill something. Soviet turn 7. 2 didn't get back in, even with company commander being available for rerolls. By the way, these guys are getting constantly shot at by the infantry and having nothing bad happen. Oh, in shooting, they just stay put. They got a good line of sight. They got 3 hits, killed 2. T-70s have moved up, got a hit. Once again, no, it just matched it and failed firepower, so it's still alive. And over here, these guys have come round the wood and managed to bail out a Panzer 3. So it's getting a bit tricky for the Germans now. German turn 8. Well, one important thing is these guys failed to unpin again. If they'd been able to unpin, they could have come back here and caused carnage. As it was, these guys got a failed blitz, but it doesn't really matter when you're shooting 2 up targets. But they only managed to bail. And then, oh, the Marder ran away. Then over here, lots of hits, but anti-tank 8, you know, it's not so good. So that once again, only managed to bail. So, I'm not sure where it's looking worse for the Germans, but we'll keep on going because the Soviets still have to get an objective. Soviet turn 8. So first of all, these guys all bailed back in and they had targets because the Germans couldn't shoot and scoot away. And then over here, one tank had to move, otherwise they all had targets, and it was just mayhem. These guys destroyed or bailed. Over here, they actually both got destroyed, which means the Soviets won. Over here, the T-60s even came in and got a couple of hits, which they saved. So, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. There were just so many bailed out Soviet tanks throughout the course of the shooting. I think that's probably what made the difference. A few 3 up firepowers would have made all the difference, but the 3 up platoon kind of got clobbered. They were out in the open a little bit more. So that's a 75mm, sorry guys. So these guys had better anti-tank, and they were, you know, like, I mean, every one of these was bailed out at least once, but their firepower just wasn't enough to finish them off. These guys really could have made a huge difference if they just unpinned when these tanks were bailed out. They could have come running along, captured 2 probably, maybe even captured some more, could have made a huge difference. Though that side of the table was always under threat as well. I don't know if Brian actually did me a favour, forcing me to come along there with them and getting behind that hill and then getting in close. I used to play chess in the Edinburgh Leagues, and I played against a strong player who I managed to beat once, and he said to me, I don't think you actually had a plan to win, you just reacted to what I did and it worked out right for you. And I'd probably say that was the case here. I didn't have a plan for how this was going to take effect, but I think it's probably down to relative firepowers. Firepower 3 compared to firepower 4, because these guys were just getting killed when they were getting a hit, and these guys were just getting bailed. With a bit of luck they could have been destroyed, but maybe that's what made the difference. So I shall do another recap to camera, folks, but hopefully you enjoyed that. A bit more of a free-flowing Eastern Front game. So what did you make of that, folks? I certainly wasn't expecting to win it, regardless of what list I had and who I was playing against and so on. It's such a difficult mission to play as a defender. It just kind of fell into my hands the way the reserves arrived, and the big hook that my T-34s did that was forced on me by Brian. But I think one of the main influencing factors was Brian's firepower rolls. Those long barrelled 50 mils with an anti-tank 9, which is quite good, they passed every single firepower check against the dug-in infantry and were blowing them out of the ground left, right and centre, blowing them out of the church. And then when it came to the what they should be killing, the tanks, I think they were putting the wrong shells up the spout, to be honest, because they just kept missing the firepowers. But that's the problem. 4-up firepower isn't great. You're always going to struggle to kill things. I think what I'm probably going to do is do a little discussion on Panzer IIIs and the weapon options. Just a short wee video after I finish this series, just to share a few observations that I've got. So there you go, a surprise win for the Soviet tankers in a difficult mission. Don't forget, guys, let me know what you think about that move I showed you with the measuring tape. Can the attacker in this game win it in turn 2 without the defender having a thing that they can do to stop them? Let me know. I might have got it wrong. I hope I have got it wrong. But thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one, which we should be recording soon, and I expect that to be something we've not used yet, which has got some Soviet heavy armour. Going to use some KVs and a mixed Tankovy and get that tough veteran German infantry list dug in again. Maybe tweak that list a bit and see how things go with that as well. But the Soviets are fighting back, which is good to see, because I thought, how are these guys ever going to win anything? So it's good to see that, with the right mission and a bit of luck and the right circumstances, that they can actually pull off a win.